Do I take those are agreed? Okay, then those have been agreed. Now, moving on to item 4, we have 2 councillors that have indicated that they would like to speak on this item. So if I can ask our Head of Planning to present this, then we will take those 2 speakers and then I will make a statement after they have spoken.
Thank you, Chairman. Following the meeting of the Maidenhead Development Management Panel on the 17th of December 2018, Councillor Derek Wilson, Chair of the panel, indicated that he had voted erroneously. As this is an application by an interested planning authority under Regulation 3 of the Town and Country Planning General Regulations 1992, it is appropriate for local planning authority to seek independent advice from Council to determine how best to proceed, which is what the local planning authority has done. Council's advice to the local planning authority is appended to the report at item 4 as Appendix A. That clearly forms advice to this panel sitting as the local planning authority. So the panel is advised that the local planning authority cannot lawfully issue a decision notice refusing planning permission in accordance with the panel's resolution to refuse on the 17th of December. Furthermore, the Council as a local planning authority has a duty to refer the application back to panel for reconsideration and determination. The advice that we receive from Council is that the first necessary step in that process is to formally rescind the resolution the panel achieved on the 17th of December, which would then allow the panel to go on and reconsider the application. And to point out to the panel that the merits of the planning application have no bearing on this item to rescind the resolution. So, Chairman, for clarity, the officer recommendation is to rescind the resolution made by the panel on the 17th of December to refuse planning permission in order that the application may be reconsidered by the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, for that response as Head of Planning. So if I can now call upon Councillor Majid, you have up to 3 minutes, and if you take a seat.
Is it okay if Councillor Hill goes first? My speak follows on?
Well, I've got Councillor Majid and then Councillor Hill, so...
Yeah, you go first. My speak follows on from him.
No, okay, if Councillor Hill wishes to start.
Thank you.
The time will commence when you start speaking, and as I said, as a non-panel member, you have up to 3 minutes to address the panel.
Thank you for letting us swap places, Mr. Chairman, it's appreciated. If there's going to be a case for rescinding the motion to refuse, the Chairman, Councillor Derek Wilson, would have to explain to colleagues and the public some important questions. Why such an experienced chairman was confused over the matter of such a simple vote. Why was the chairman as surprised as many in the room at the outcome of the vote. Why did he not say he was confused publicly at the meeting? Why he announced the application had been refused after checking with the clerk. If he believed that there was a mistake had been made, why didn't he speak then? And why the public got to hear about this was from the leader of the council and not himself. Finally, why, as chairman, did he do nothing to ensure that all members of the public were aware of the situation until the Crown Council wrote to them sometime after the event? Bringing this application back in this way, in my view, makes a mockery of the principles of democracy and publicly videoed and recorded votes. It shows the lack of respect and consideration for the public, and it sets the most undesirable precedent whereby any panel member may reflect on the planning decision after the event and decide that he or she was confused and made a mistake. I also believe it brings the Council into disrepute as a wise and mature local decision-making body which has the public trust. In my view, what should the Council do next? It should stand by the decision that it took on the 17th of December on the reasonable assumption that all councillors were voting only on the merits of the planning application. If it's unable or unwilling to do that, the Council should withdraw the application and enter into a period of meaningful dialogue, consultation with residents, complainants and their representatives. If the application is not withdrawn, the panel should resolve to defer the application to enable the applicant to carry out such meaningful consultation. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Chairman, and allowing me to speak first. Thank you, councillors.
Councillor Majid, you equally have 3 minutes and the time will commence when you start speaking.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for allowing Councillor Hill to go first. Mr. Chairman, much of what Councillor Hill has said is what I had written here as well, so I don't want to be repeating myself. We would just like to add, we as in the not royal we, but the residents, that what we believe that the panel is deciding is whether Councillor Wilson made a mistake in voting for refusal. We are asking you that if there was a mistake, and I believe that there is reasonable doubt that this mistake has maybe that Councillor Wilson actually voted the right way for the residents who we felt were actually right in this argument. If a mistake was made, then the panel has to decide that the mistake should have been rectified at the time it was made, during the meeting, not after the meeting actually closed. Anything after the meeting or 4 days after the meeting does not count because the refusal note should have been given, which we are still waiting for. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, just before I open up for general debate, I will read a statement that I've written. So if I can have, on the evening of the 17th of December 2018, we debated planning application number 18/02105 for the erection of a 5-storey car park on land to the south of Stafferton Way and east of Vickers Way, Maidenhead. During the vote on the first motion that was proposed for refusal, I inadvertently cast my vote in error and thought I was voting for the officer recommendation to grant planning permission. Hence my surprise when the outcome was announced by the clerk. I believed at that time I was voting to approve the application and didn't appreciate when I said for that this was for refusal. Obviously, I queried with the clerk to the panel to inform us what votes were cast, as I thought the vote was split. I thought I had no alternative but to announce the result of the vote that the item had been refused. Whilst in hindsight, members could form the view that I could have sought to address this mistake, I was still shocked as to what I had done. I saw that the public and panel members had started to disperse, and I was uncertain how to correct this error procedurally and needed to seek advice. This I couldn't do at this time as I was chairing the meeting and the public were leaving, but I then told the monitoring officer and the head of planning at the end of the meeting about my error in voting. This was only 1 hour after the decision was taken. I regret my vote, and I can only offer my sincerest apologies to residents and members of the Maidenhead Development Management Panel for what was a momentary lapse of concentration. I have always tried to act in a responsible, honest and diligent manner as chairman of this panel. I couldn't therefore not permit this mistake to rest and felt that I had to report this matter to the officers so that they could take legal advice on what was the impact and what should be done next. Again, I can only say that this was a stupid mistake, and I would ask members of the panel to consider my past performance and diligence as your chairman and accept this. That's the end of my statement. So now moving to members. I think Sean, our legal officer, wishes to make some comments.
Thank you, Chairman, and apologies to Councillor. I just thought, as this is not a planning application, I'll try and help how you should form your decision making when considering this item. Obviously, if you agree with the officer decision in item 4, then we will not move to item 5. Then we will move to item 5. What? If you disagree, if you agree with the officer's recommendation, then we will move to item 5. If you disagree with the officer's recommendation, then item 5 would not be considered and the original decision would stand. We've got barrister's advice from 2 learned barristers which set out what we knew anyway, that if the council has made a mistake, then we are under a duty to reconsider it. So the question for the panel members tonight is to determine whether or not you believe a mistake has been made. And you need to decide whether or not you favour Councillor Wilson's version of events, as supported by the monitoring officer and head of planning, who could answer any questions that you have, or an alternative. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs. Maureen Hunt.
I just wanted to get clarification on something here. Our officer said, our legal officer said, that a mistake had been made as per outlined with the barrister's recommendation. Those 2 barristers' recommendations were whether the date of a resolution or the notice when that's what that was about, not whether a mistake is made. It's when can you go for a judicial review or an appeal, the date of the resolution or the date of the notice, and it's the date of the notice that came through. Can you confirm that, please?
Through you, Chairman, the planning authority is free to change its mind at any time up until the notice is issued. So that's when the head of planning has issued a planning decision. Up until that point, if there are any other material considerations, anything else that needs to be considered, then it would be incumbent upon the officers to bring that back to panel. For example, if there was a change in policy, or for example, if an item of evidence had been produced to you at that panel that was incorrect, then the officers would then bring that back to panel. That applies up until the decision is issued. After the decision is issued by the head of planning, then the planning permission is granted. Does that answer your question, Councillor Hunt?
Thank you, our legal. But on these ones, for the resolution to be sorted or the date, it was to do with various things that came through. One was the King's Cross Road. Yeah. Now, that was very complicated, as you know, because I'm sure everybody's read that appeal. Very, very complicated. And it went to a sub-panel in 2006. But then there was the elections, that was March 2000. The elections came in May 2006. And also, it became a control panel then, planning control panel, rather than a subcommittee. And that was the issue, whether the planning committee could determine, and they were told, the legal did say to them, you've got to take on board what the subcommittee said. However, the subcommittee was outlined, and there was S106, and it had been through to the SOS at that point, they sent it on. So it's to do with S106, the outline, and housing as well as affordable. And that was the difference. This is very different to that, I think. But please do have confirmation.
The two cases in the one of the council's advice are in relation to the principle of a change, because there was a change, that's why it was brought back to the actual committee. So the principles put forward were that the panel could change its mind, and it wasn't bound by the original decision of the original panel. So that was the 2 points in that case. Here, that is just the principle of, can a panel change its mind? And the point is it can before that. We're even more fundamental in what we're discussing here, because we're talking about a mistake has been said to be made. And does the council ignore it, pretend, hope it goes away? And I would have said that actually that is not the council discharging its duty. We have a mistake. That judgment has been made by the head of planning and the monitoring officer, who have felt duty bound to bring that back to this panel. Now, we have done something similar before in relation to other planning applications. Again, there are different facts behind them, and different panels, but a development control panel. But the principle of a matter being considered by a panel twice because of an issue, this is not the first time this happened. I think that, as I said, it's not like a wedding vow. It's not speak and forever hold your peace. If this is brought back to you again, the panel should consider this.
Councillor Claire Stretton.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, I have sought clarity on various aspects of this matter from both Jennifer Jackson, our Head of Planning, and Mary Severin, who is the legal officer.